Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today at HR Tech Talks. I am George Rogers, your host today, and I'm excited about a conversation we're going to be having today with Matt. And I want to just bring him up right away to have this great discussion as we are both passionate about some similar things, and I know you're going to enjoy it as well. Without further ado, Matt, tell us a little bit about who you are, my friend, and what you're doing right now.
Hey, George, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it. I'm Matt Schmidt, CEO and founder of Peoplelogic, and Peoplelogic is all about simplifying employee engagement insights without the need for surveys. And so we've been on this mission to really transform how companies of nearly all sizes get to understand the true engagement of their teams.
Awesome. So, as we're diving into this engagement piece, what kind of problems or solutions are you providing with your technology, solving these things for your clients?
Yeah, we started by trying to solve the problem of retention. And that came out of building my last company, D Zone, which we built towards a successful exit. But we kept getting surprised by folks leaving and by people burning out. And as we built PeopleLogic, we started to realize that the traditional employee engagement surveys and the increased focus on pulse surveys just wasn't doing the job. And so we really help people teams, and HR teams get their time back and reduce their survey fatigue and the bias that comes from those things by drawing the important signals about their team's engagement and connectivity and productivity right from the exhaust data that they're of the tools their teams are already using. Think about not just your communication tools, but also your productivity tools. So your HubSpots, your Jiras, your Asanas, your Salesforces, and really leveraging the wealth of information that companies of all sizes have right at their fingertips, but tend to leave on the floor.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about People Logic, and it's very data driven, right? That's something that focus a lot on, especially if, for healthy companies in all things, right? From a business standpoint, but especially when it comes to the culture and the engagement piece and how that actually directly coordinates and connects with retention, right? Where there's bad
Mhm.
engagement, where the culture is not good, people do not want to stay in those places very long. What it is about your data that helps the engagement data that's becoming a key to the organization's health?
Yeah, one of the key places that people start to use our product for is really to understand the connectivity between teams. Who are those culture carriers? Who are those influencers that aren't necessarily the formal managers or the people that you would expect? Because we're showing you the graph using ONA, organizational network analysis, you can see that really easily about where you have those bottlenecks, but on the flip side, also those influencers, right? And as far as company health and organizational health, as we call it, you also can leverage this data to really understand, are your customers at risk because of engagement issues, right? Maybe you've got the wrong set of people that are
Yeah.
focusing on your most important customers, and that has a direct tie to your bottom line. And that's the place where ultimately we're taking this product and allowing you to be able to put together, how does engagement relate to revenue and profit?
That direct connection with, I always say as a business owner, I had 18 retail stores. And one of the things that we learned very quickly is that if we don't take care of our number one customer, which is our actual employees, if they are not bought in, if they're not engaged and understanding not just the process and the systems on what they're doing, but why they're doing it, it really does affect your actual clients and customers on the outside that
Mhm.
you're trying to bring in to build your business customer base. And so with that, how do you then bring in People Logic and some of your clients that are loving and thriving with it right now? What are some other areas that you feel that it really brings an organization together when it comes to the data, the engagement, the customers and clients that it comes into? What else are you seeing as a trend within your software?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it very often starts with getting rolled out to a people team or an HR team, right? But after that people team has started to mature and they've started to see the data and they understand, like, oh, wow, this can be really helpful for the managers within my organization or my department heads. And so then the platform starts to expand out into those other groups. And we really drive that change within the organizations through what we call OIRs, or observations, insights, and recommendations, that are really focused on taking the data showing how it's connected to other pieces of information within the organization, and then telling you, okay, what's the next step? And what we're seeing is that organizations are really very keen today on trying to hand as much of the change in the process and the direction down to those managers within the organization, because everybody's out of time, right? They're
Yeah.
all completely overloaded and they need to be able to do more with less, and they want to have these playbooks that they can hand to others within the organization to allow them to carry the ball forward and keep their people engaged in a continuous fashion.
Awesome. In regards to some of the trends that you may be personally watching, I know during this time, especially summer, kids are out of school, your parents are adopting. We've gone through these crazy transitions over the last couple of years with the pandemic, virtual
Mhm.
work, back in the office, summer hybrid. And there's a lot of challenges, especially from the hybrid standpoint, when it comes to keeping your employees engaged. Families are taking vacations or wanting to spend more time with their family as a top priority of how they can have that work-life balance and their well-being. What are some other key workforce or workplace trends that you're watching closely right now?
Yeah, our given that most of our customers are those that are early leaders in remote and hybrid work, we certainly watch that one very closely. And it always amazes me, the whole battle, I'll call it a battle, over whether you're hybrid or you're remote or you're got to be into the office. And I think it's going to be pretty hard to put that genie back in the bottle as far as remote and hybrid work goes. We're watching that one pretty closely. I think the other one, because I think that one's going to drive a lot of the feelings about whether people are engaged in their work and whether they feel like their organization, their company cares about them as people and as part of their life. I think the other trend that we continue to watch is just whether the use of data for HR and people teams, right? And that's been an ongoing trend, as you guys I'm sure have seen. And we're keeping a very close eye on it because I think now it's starting to change to a place of not being theoretical. It's definitely more to a place of operationalizing. And we still see more HR leaders that aren't comfortable interpreting data than are comfortable interpreting data. But I think we're also starting to see some of that trend change. And I think
Yeah.
that's a more as we see more and more coming out of how AI is going to impact HR. I think that's gonna continue to change because the it's evolving the market very rapidly, and those that don't change are going to get left behind pretty quickly.
We got recent data came with our performance and engagement and culture research that's coming out. One of the questions that we talked about is companies obviously are searching for ways to keep employees engaged and how that engagement really impacts their performance at a high level. And the struggle with a lot of employers is that how well are we listening when it comes to listening to what really matters? So we're listening, but are we listening to what really matters? The workplace culture at companies when employees were not happy, and this is planning on quitting within the next 6 months. 44% of them said that their workplace culture at their company was functional or somewhat supportive on that side of things. Those who were happy had good engagement that was directly tied, obviously, to leadership. 77% of them say, you know what, our workplace culture is functioning and supporting. And so having that culture and that engagement is so important. I want to talk a little bit about the power of leadership because I believe a
Mhm.
lot of this is influenced through leadership. What's your take on that piece when it comes to leadership and how it influences the workplace culture and engagement?
Yeah, that's a great segue. And I think there's been studies for years talking about how one of the biggest drivers for engagement is your manager, right? And I think people in today's world, the newer generations of workers expect their managers to not just be a manager, but to actually be a leader.
Yeah.
And I think the more we see that, it's about caring about their people as actual humans and in making sure that work and life are integrated. And what we find is that when an organization cares about all the different facets of the worker as an actual human, and acknowledges that there is a life and there's a work, and sometimes those are integrated and sometimes they're not, the that those workers are happier and more productive and more engaged, right?
Yeah.
And we see that even with our own small team, right? When we push into places of being less focused on being people first, we can see the engagement drop within our team. We can see that the work life integration component of our stay factor score changes, or we can see that people pull away from the rest of the organization because they're frustrated. And I think the more that you give leaders in the organization those early warning signs that are oftentimes very subtle,
Yeah.
the sooner they can take advantage of it and be prepared to show the employees that they're proactive. And I think sometimes just being proactive about it makes all the difference.
Yeah, staying engaged. I always say we believe that the psychological definition of belonging and connecting and feeling that is that they feel that direct connection of accepted, of respected, and appreciated by their direct leader. And so having that sense of connection where leadership really caring for people. One of the things
Mhm.
that I find interesting in the HR space in general, human resources, that putting human back into this as well, that we truly care for people, having leaders that truly care, not just for profit, but for people is so important. With People Logic, one of the things that kind of stuck out with me when I was looking at your website and I was checking it out was it really connects people with data. And so there's so much that data can do, but how you connect that data, be able to give it to the leadership so they can better understand and transition. Can you talk a little bit about some advice when it comes to employers to help them improve that connection with leadership and engagement? What would be some advice for those, and maybe tie into, as you talked about in the beginning, that retention piece, right? Because with leadership,
Mhm.
if you're engaged or not engaged, that really can affect your retention efforts.
Sometimes it's as simple as just paying attention, right? As a leader, and I know that sounds fairly trite, but too many in today's world where we're operating this hybrid or remote world, you tend to pay attention to the ones that are either present or the ones that are perhaps the squeakiest wheel. And I think where data can help us is to start to pay attention to those signals that are outside of the squeaky wheel, right? And by paying attention, we start to see where there's the risk. And again, that's that being proactive. And sometimes it's simply looking for a leader. One of the things that I find is that it is you get the best results when you take the time to offer individualized management to each of your direct reports, right? And whether that's to those that are reporting directly to you, or maybe it's a skip level, right? Finding out how they like to manage, the cadence that they like to be checked in with, the questions that make sense from a leadership perspective. I think there's the more that you can treat everyone as an individual rather than, oh, I need to just go through the motions here. That's where you start to make the biggest impact on those types of things. Because, where people are very perceptive and they start to notice when you are treating everything like it's just routine, right? Or a cog. And I think that's where the more you can move towards that individualized style of management, yes, it may be more work for you, but the impact that it'll have on the organization is dramatic.
Can you share with us, and maybe there's some exciting news or some things that you have, any exciting things about People Logic that you're looking forward to as we finish up this quarter and going into the summer, fall season? What's really moving and moving your heart and you're very fired up about right now?
Yeah, we're super excited. We were recently recognized for an HR Tech Award from Lighthouse and super excited about that and the recognition for the whole team on that. We're excited about some of our recent customer wins. And I think the thing that has me most fired up is really the next generation of features that we're adding to the platform. Growing the set, the technology that we use. We've added more than 50 new integrations through our partner with Merge. And we have some exciting new stuff around how we look for those early warning signs and surface those to you coming out here in the next couple of weeks. And the more we push to just have it be so drop dead obvious about where you need to pay attention to the risk in your organization. That's what really gets me excited and fired up.
My last question, and this is, I just had a note on it because I personally want to know a little bit more about the stay factor, this algorithm that you use. Can you just kind of share a little bit about this? Because it combines factors of an engagement and that burnout
Mhm.
into one score. How can managers use that information? Talk a little bit about it so other people may know about
Yeah,
it, but how can they use that information to improve their engagement levels across their team with the stay factor piece that y'all have?
yeah, the great question, and there's a couple of different ways. So the stay factor score is calculated from all the different data that we pull in from the tools that you're using and the interactions within those tools. And then we break it down across 6 different components. Things from your productivity, your work-life integration, your meeting culture, your time off and your tenure and other things, right? All across all of those different components, you get a multiplying factor based on your own baselines and based on the organization yourself. So it's not really a score in the sense of like you need to reach the highest score, right? Your score is your score because it's based on your own behaviors. And from that, what particularly with what we just rolled out to our customers, we now show you where those individual components are trending over the past couple of weeks, and you can see exactly, okay, we know that George's score maybe dropped by 10%, and we can go and look and see, okay, that was because his meetings component has had a big change, right? Everything else is looking good, but it seems he's a bit overwhelmed from a meetings perspective. And that then gets paired with these OIRs, these recommendations, right to the manager or to the people team that tell you exactly what to do to take corrective action.
Yeah. So there's some people logics automatic like insights and recommendations help managers as well stay up to date. I know I said that was the last question, but as you were talking and like more came out. So just my final question, our problem is how can this information be used to inform decisions about that disengagement, improving the organizational structure, talent management, evaluating that effectiveness of new initiatives? Because that a lot of that
Mhm.
insight and recommendation, I believe a lot of managers, HR leaders out there looking to stay up to date on these changing promoters or distractors of this organizational health. Close us out with that piece. I promise I
Yeah,
won't.
that's a great one. Yeah, really, as far as the stay factor score for each individual is concerned, it's all about bringing that to the conversations with your direct reports in a positive way, right? And so we're always encouraging you to have those. This isn't a punitive conversation. This is hey, I see that you're struggling here. You're putting in a lot of hours outside of work. How do we bring that back in line to what we want? As far as identifying those change agents and the where you've got some rough spots in your org structure, that's where the graph and the way we display that to the managers and the HR leaders comes into play. And then we surface, hey, you should be paying attention to here because we've identified this influencer, but he's not in a position of actually being a normal influencer. And so it's all about showing both in a visual way and then also then in a way that we alert you through email and Slack at the appropriate time so that you can take action.
If anybody was looking to connect with you, Matt, where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn or you can just shoot me an email at matt@peoplelogic.ai.
Awesome. I appreciate you, Matt, as always. A great conversation with you here today on HR Tech Talks. And looking forward to following more with People Logics. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, George. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in this week. Don't forget, you can check out hrtechtalks.org for more of our updated sessions coming along. You get notified as well. So make sure you click that for your notifications as well. As Matt had mentioned, we did announce our HR Tech Award winners for 2023. If you want more information about that as well, you can check out hrtechawards.org for more information about that. Until next time, we appreciate everybody joining us here on HR Tech Talks. Take care.